So 50 Cent just put a massive spotlight on why Snoop Dogg seemingly vanished the moment the Diddy documentary hit Netflix. And trust me, once I started digging into this, things got way more unsettling than most people were prepared for. Several online discussions and so-called sources are now raising eyebrows, suggesting that Snoop Dogg might not be as clean as people have always assumed. Yeah, you heard that right. Stick around, because what's coming next is absolutely wild. You probably clicked on this video because something felt off about Snoop suddenly going quiet, right? Well, you weren't imagining it. 50 Cent's documentary, Diddy, The Reckoning, just shot to #1 on Netflix in both the United States and the UK. But here's where things get strange. The exact moment that documentary dropped, Snoop Dogg went completely silent. No Instagram posts. No tweets. Nothing. And that's extremely suspicious for someone who's normally everywhere online. So here's what we're breaking down in this video. First, the real reason Snoop Dogg faded out just as everyone started talking about Diddy. Second, the shocking claims coming from people who say they were actually there, suggesting Snoop may have been involved in similar situations. Third, the old evidence that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. And finally, we're diving into the conversations about Kim Porter allegedly catching Snoop Dogg and Diddy together in an affair. Make sure you watch until the very end, because the final detail is the kind of information that will seriously catch you off guard. Trust me on this one. Now, before we jump into the heavy parts, you need to understand just how close Snoop Dogg and Diddy really were, because this was never just some casual industry relationship. We're talking about something much deeper.
In his doc, the Reckoning, Sean Combs' The Reckoning being not only #1 in the US, but now #1 in the UK. And he posted some flowers, and y'all know 50 love being funny.
When 50 Cent's documentary dropped, it instantly became the biggest topic on Netflix. People everywhere started talking about the allegations surrounding Diddy. The documentary features individuals sharing their personal experiences, breaks down the so-called freak-off parties, and lays out everything Diddy has been accused of over the years. And honestly, it's intense. Really intense. But here's where things get strange. While the entire internet was reacting, posting clips, sharing opinions, and giving their takes, Snoop Dogg didn't say a single word. Complete silence. And for someone who usually comments on everything happening in hip-hop, that's not normal. That's strange. Very strange. Now check this out.
Puffy's sons and my sons have been best friends since they were 6, 7 years old. I didn't make it happen and Puffy didn't make it happen. One night I was at my house and Puffy's son was over about like 9 o'clock. And I'm like, cuz, what time you going home? And he like, I'm spending the night. I'm like, did you tell your dad? He like, nah, my mom dropped me off. So Kim, rest in peace, was connecting my kids with Puff kids, and they formed a friendship and a bond. When Justin went to UCLA, my son went to UCLA. When Christian was rapping, my son was rapping. When he was modeling, they was flying over the world together. So they forged a friendship and a brotherhood that me and Puff always had.
Their sons have been best friends since they were just 6 years old. Snoop Dogg has spoken before about how close their families really were. He's talked about how Kim Porter, Diddy's late ex, played a major role in keeping both families connected, setting up playdates and making sure the kids stayed close. When Justin Combs went to UCLA, Snoop Dogg's son went to UCLA too. When Christian Combs started rapping, Snoop's son started rapping as well. These families weren't just friendly, they were tied together at almost every level. So here's the real question. When someone you're that close to ends up at the center of serious accusations, and your first reaction is to completely disappear from the public eye, what does that really tell you? I mean, wouldn't someone with nothing to hide at least say something? Anything at all? And let me be clear, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm simply pointing out patterns that don't seem to line up. You feel me? Now, before we go any deeper, you need to understand what these allegations actually include.
Matthew, take that top card. When I die, I want my last words to be, I did it.
Hey.
We're talking about claims tied to those so-called freak-off parties, where inappropriate behavior was allegedly taking place. Some online discussions claim that Snoop Dogg was seen in compromising situations with Diddy, while even darker rumors circulating online go as far as suggesting possible connections to trafficking-related scenarios. Yeah, it gets heavy here. So if this is too much, I completely understand. You can click away now. But if you want to understand the full picture of why people are questioning things, let's keep going. Now, let's break down Snoop Dogg's behavior over the years, because once you start noticing these patterns, it's hard to unsee them. Remember that moment when Diddy went on TV and said, "When I die, I want my last words to be, I did it?" Go back and watch Snoop's reaction in that clip. His expression stands out, a strangely awkward smile, almost like he already knew what Diddy was referring to. People are now rewatching that moment and viewing it in a completely different light. To some, it feels less like a joke and more like a private moment between two people who share a history the public doesn't fully understand. Honestly, the energy feels unsettling. And unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. Suge Knight is currently serving a life sentence in prison. And because of that, many believe he has nothing left to lose by speaking on what he claims is the truth. Recently, Suge made statements that shocked a lot of people, especially regarding the night Tupac Shakur was shot in Las Vegas. And what he said next has reopened conversations that many thought were buried for good.
Happy to have you back, my man.
Man, I ain't with nowhere. I'm closer than you think.
Yeah, man, I had to run it back. I mean, the people rock with you, so, it was only right, man. So I gotta ask you, because over the years, man, there's been a lot of confusion. When Tupac got shot in Vegas, was Snoop at the hospital?
So, Snoop didn't go nowhere near the hospital. So when it happened, as you know, for some strange reason, but now we know the real reason, Snoop did not attend the fight with us or the club, the after party at Club 662. And what's so crazy about that, we thought it was strange that he wasn't there. This is the first one he didn't attend. And according to Warren G and everybody else, now we know why he didn't. But to get straight to the point was this. I was at my house in Vegas, and I started calling Snoop, telling him, hey, what's up? Like it's something wrong with this situation. Pac in the hospital, come holler at him, come check on him. So he drove down, and I was at the house waiting on him. And Tupac's mother was at my house.
According to Suge Knight, Snoop Dogg was originally supposed to go with them to the Mike Tyson fight that night. The tickets were ready, the plans were set, everything was locked in. But at the very last minute, Snoop suddenly didn't show up. He didn't go to the fight. He didn't hit the club afterward. Nothing. And according to Suge, this was the first time ever that Snoop Dogg had missed an event with them. The timing alone raises questions. Then Tupac Shakur gets shot. He's in the hospital, fighting for his life. And once again, Snoop still doesn't show up. Suge says he was back at his place in Vegas, calling Snoop over and over, telling him, yo, Pac's in the hospital. Come check on him. Eventually, Snoop finally came by, but what happened next was, in Suge's words, extremely strange. Tupac's mother was there, devastated, waiting for news about her son. When Snoop Dogg arrived, he reportedly told them that Pac hated him and that Pac was mad at him. Then, according to Suge, Snoop broke down, crying and physically throwing up. Like, actually throwing up. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like normal behavior. To a lot of people, that looks like someone under intense pressure, someone dealing with something heavy. You feel what I'm saying? But here's where it gets even crazier. Warren G, who is basically family to Snoop Dogg, has confirmed that Snoop was at his house the night of the shooting. And according to these claims, Snoop had a walkie-talkie with him. Not a regular walkie-talkie. Suge Knight explained that these were special radios, devices that could communicate across large distances, even across the West Coast. Allegedly, the only people who used these kinds of radios were security teams working major events. So the question becomes, why did Snoop Dogg have a security radio at Warren G's house while watching the fight on TV? And why do some people claim he could hear what was happening in Vegas, including the shots being fired? Multiple individuals have claimed that someone was heard over the radio saying, got him, immediately after Tupac was shot. I'm not stating this as fact, I'm just laying out what's been claimed over the years. I'm connecting the dots people have been talking about for decades. You tell me, does any of that sound innocent? And it's not just Suge Knight saying all of this.
And Death Row? Y'all don't love us? Y'all don't love us?
All on the record. Dancing. Come to Death Row.
But I was like, damn, we on the same record label. I know these people are really thinking like we are like Coast, West Coast. We got beef with the people we got beef with. But we could go anywhere in the country because we are America's most wanted.
Fans have been rewatching old interviews from the 1990s, closely analyzing Snoop Dogg's body language whenever he's around Tupac Shakur. And once you start paying attention, the tension becomes hard to ignore. People point out how Snoop often appears nervous, how he positions himself, and how, during the height of the East Coast versus West Coast beef, he seemed closer to Diddy's circle than to the Death Row record side. Even back then, some fans were already saying Snoop had switched up on Tupac. Those claims were being made in real time, but most people didn't want to believe them. Snoop Dogg always came off as cool, calm, and laid back. Looking back now, though, many feel the signs were sitting in plain sight the whole time. Now, this is where things move into much more disturbing territory. So buckle up. A man named Courtney Burgess has recently come forward with claims of his own. He says he's been in the music industry for over 35 years and alleges that he is in possession of Kim Porter's real memoir, not the polished version that surfaced later, which Kim Porter's children publicly called fake. According to Courtney, he's talking about the original writings, documents he claims are filled with real evidence. And what he says is inside those writings is shocking. He claims Kim Porter had been quietly documenting everything happening behind the scenes for years. Allegedly, she kept photos, receipts, handwritten notes, an entire collection of material she never released publicly because she understood how serious things could get around Diddy. Before her passing in 2018, under circumstances that people still question online, Courtney claims Kim Porter handed all of this material to someone she trusted completely. And here's the part that's making people really uneasy. According to Courtney Burgess, the memoir allegedly includes photos of Snoop Dogg and Diddy together in situations that, in his words, don't look like normal, homie behavior at all.
Hold it up a little bit more. Let me see how that. Oh yeah, damn.
You know what I'm saying? We don't hold our man hand. We shake it and get it back in our pocket.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They got Diddy and Neo, and if you heard Neo's wife call him Little Diddy, that he like freak off, get high and get freak off. They all baby oil you up.
Oh man, what the hell is that?
You know what I'm saying?
Not him and the son. That's his son, right?
He even describes one photo where Diddy is allegedly rubbing Snoop Dogg's hand in a way that, according to him, looks far too intimate to be a friendly moment. He says these aren't quick handshakes. He describes them as lingering, slow touches that were caught on camera. During the interview, the host reportedly shows a few blurred-out images. Even though the faces are obscured, many viewers say the body language alone is enough to raise eyebrows. Courtney Burgess flat-out states, "Men don't hold hands like that. We shake hands and move on." According to him, these images suggest something very different. He also claims there are photos of Diddy with other male celebrities, including Neo and Andre Harrell, in situations he describes as similarly uncomfortable. All of this material, he alleges, was documented by Kim Porter, safeguarded, and passed along before her death. Now, I'll be honest, with all this coming out, it initially sounded like typical internet gossip. The kind of stuff people exaggerate or stretch for clicks. But then certain details began lining up with information mentioned in the federal investigation, and that's when it stopped feeling like just rumors. Things escalated even further when a lawyer named Ariel Mitchell, who represents multiple individuals involved in the case against Diddy, appeared on national television. And during that live interview, she dropped a serious bombshell. She claimed that someone had reached out to her attempting to sell what was described as a freak-off tape, an alleged recording involving Diddy and another unnamed celebrity. And that revelation sent this entire conversation into a completely different territory.
I was recently contacted by someone who wanted me to essentially represent them in the sale of one of the Diddy tapes. So, which I declined that because...
Wait a minute, say that again. Say that again, back up. You're saying that there's tapes and they're being shopped?
Yes, there have been people already shopping.
We've heard about the tapes, but
yes.
The shopping thing is...
Yes, there already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood. But one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of and to contact the person who was in the video to see if they were interested in purchasing the video before it became a public knowledge.
I've heard this before, so like a catch and kill.
Catch and kill, correct.
Wow, can you, and I guess you can't reveal the person who is on
No, I
tape.
can't explain who the person was, but Mr.
High profile?
Mr. Combs was in the tape, and this other person is, I would venture to say, more high profile than Mr.
And here's the part that really shocked people. She claims the other person in that footage is even more high profile than Diddy, more famous, more recognizable, and a bigger name than Diddy himself. The lawyer says she has personally seen still images from the recording and that the other person's face is completely visible. No blurring. No guessing. According to her, the video was filmed inside Diddy's Atlanta home. And based on what she described, it doesn't appear that the other celebrity even knew a camera was rolling. She specifically said it didn't look like they were aware they were being recorded, suggesting it may have been filmed secretly. She also confirmed that the footage isn't just suggestive, it's graphic. Very graphic. Legally, she says she cannot reveal the other person's name. However, online speculation has gone into overdrive. Multiple sources, from different circles, keep pointing to the same name over and over again, Snoop Dogg. Different people, different platforms, but the same name keeps coming up. And you really have to think about the timing here. Kim Porter passed away suddenly in 2018, reportedly from pneumonia. She was only 47 years old and, by most accounts, healthy. Gone just like that. And according to these claims, she allegedly had evidence that connected both Diddy and Snoop Dogg. When you put all of that together, people say it doesn't just feel strange, it feels extremely suspicious. Now, let's move into what people who say they were actually there have been claiming, because this part isn't coming from random internet chatter. These are individuals described as first-hand witnesses. Gene Deal, who spent years working as Diddy's personal bodyguard, has also started speaking out.
Demon, bro. Dude is a demon. That dude was possessed with some kind of demon, man. He's possessed with some kind of demon. Wanna be in all this red, this dark rooms with the music blasting. It had to be a certain temperature. You're a certain type of music for the vibration they were saying. Come on, bro. And I don't care what nobody say, man. And like, when people still talk and keep on talking, if that priest ever come out and he talking, if people keep talking, you'll find out that a lot of shit that Gene Deal has said has been the truth and nothing but the truth. I was there.
He claims he witnessed everything up close and has recently said that Diddy appeared to be under the influence of something dark. According to Gene Deal, these parties weren't random at all. The room temperature, lighting, and even the music were deliberately chosen to create a specific atmosphere, almost like the entire setup was designed for a ritual. Gene Deal described seeing what he referred to as a priest-like figure or spiritual advisor rubbing something on Diddy's head. Then, according to his account, Diddy was instructed to take a white dove out of a cage and toss it into the air. But instead of flying away, the dove reportedly dropped straight to the ground, unable to move. Gene says he had never seen anything like that in his life. And here's where the claims escalate even further. Multiple people now allege that Snoop Dogg was present at events like these as well, that he showed up, participated, and wasn't just a regular guest at ordinary parties. According to these claims, Snoop was allegedly involved in the darker side of these gatherings too. But it doesn't stop there. A woman named Ally Carter has also been speaking out for years. She identifies herself as a survivor of child trafficking and says she has been calling out both Diddy and Snoop Dogg as far back as 2020. At the time, she says, no one paid attention to her claims. Only now, with everything else coming to light, are people starting to revisit what she's been saying all along.
That Snoop Dogg, not again, mentioned him in December of 2020, but everybody beat the hell out of me. Screw you, that can't be true. What the hell do I know, right? And then recently it just came out again that Snoop Dogg got accused of trafficking children. And what did everybody do? Ooh, Snoop Dogg is at the halftime. I'm going to the halftime.
People dragged her online. They called her delusional, told her to stay quiet, and tried to discredit her. But now, a lot of what she spoke about is suddenly lining up with what's being reported. Ally Carter has claimed that Snoop Dogg actually held more influence in those circles than Diddy. She says she was already raising concerns and allegations back in December 2020, but they were brushed aside and ignored. Meanwhile, Snoop Dogg continued to be celebrated. People cheered for him at the Super Bowl halftime show, supported his businesses, and treated him like an untouchable legend. She also made a point that really stuck with a lot of people. She said, "We canceled Dr. Seuss and Aunt Jemima, but we ignore trafficking accusations. How does that make sense?" And honestly, that question hit hard. Is accountability really based on how famous someone is? On how loved they are? Because if that's the case, something is seriously broken. None of it adds up.
Snoop Dogg and Diddy were best friends with Tupac. Diddy is like a black Clinton. Anybody know that? Everybody say don't mess with Diddy. Diddy is like a black Clinton. Because, you know, there's a black... So they say that nobody messes with Diddy. There's a reason for that. You can ask Kanye. He'll tell you. He's trying to. He's trying to. He really trying to, but in a minute he's going to get a little sick. Probably not Martin Luther King, that's a whole other story. Martin Lawrence, you know, that running out in the middle of the street acting a damn fool. He's probably going to have one of those reset issues or something like that. And then I'll start it too that, you know, Kanye didn't. But he's trying to. But then, you know, programming breaks and then it clashes and then, you know.
Ally Carter also spoke about something much heavier involving Snoop Dogg, Diddy, and Tupac Shakur. She claims that all three of them started out on good terms, but she strongly suggests that Snoop and Diddy eventually began working together behind the scenes, while turning their backs on Pac. She even compared Diddy to a Black Clinton, essentially arguing that he's protected in ways most people aren't. According to her, there are layers of power and influence shielding him from consequences. She also brought up Kanye West, pointing out that when Kanye tried to call out similar issues, his behavior suddenly shifted. In her view, it looked like he was pressured, silenced, or mentally pushed off track so he'd stop speaking out altogether. It's dark. It's twisted. And I know some of you are probably thinking, okay, but where's the real evidence? And that's a fair question. Here's what we do know. Federal investigators have reportedly seized computers, hard drives, and storage devices from Diddy's properties. And according to multiple reports and online discussions, Snoop Dogg's name allegedly continues to surface in sealed testimony. Now let's talk about what many people describe as Snoop's pattern of inconsistencies, because once you start noticing them, they become hard to ignore. There's a video circulating right now where someone breaks down contradictions in Snoop Dogg's stories about Tupac. In one interview, Snoop tells a dramatic story about running into Nas in New York during the height of the East Coast versus West Coast tension. He claims Tupac aggressively approached Nas, even though Nas supposedly had a large crew with him. The way Snoop tells it, he makes it sound like he was there, watching everything unfold. But here's the problem. Nas himself responded and said Snoop wasn't even there. Members of the Outlaws, Tupac's actual inner circle, also confirmed that Snoop Dogg was not present. So the question becomes, why tell a story about a moment you didn't witness? The creator of that breakdown video asks a simple but powerful question: why would Snoop think he could lie about something when the people who actually lived it could call him out instantly? Their conclusion is this: Snoop Dogg needs to stay attached to Tupac's legacy to protect his own image. He needs people to believe he was loyal to Pac, that they were close all the way to the end. Because if the full story ever came out, if people believed he turned his back on Tupac while staying close with Diddy, his image and legacy could take a serious hit. Think about it. Snoop has brought up Tupac in countless interviews. He's cried on camera. He's shown emotion. He's repeatedly invoked Pac's name in ways that reinforce his own credibility and street reputation. According to critics, none of that is accidental, it's part of the persona. And this is why some people say it was always strange how certain things never quite added up. Even Suge Knight once hinted at something known in industry circles as the boiled egg test, a rumor that's floated around the music business for years.
Thought it was strange that he wasn't there. This is the first one he did 10, and according to Warren G and everybody else, now we know why he didn't. But to get straight to the point was it.
I'm not going into details here because the allegations are graphic and deeply disturbing. But the idea, according to these claims, is that young artists were supposedly required to pass a so-called ritual to prove they would do anything for success. And according to Suge Knight and others who say they're familiar with the industry's dark side, Snoop Dogg allegedly passed that test. They point to this as the reason his career took off so fast, why he seemingly went from newcomer to one of the biggest names in hip-hop almost overnight. Now here's where people start connecting dots. Snoop Dogg has a long-running, very public obsession with boiled eggs. He posts about them, jokes about them, and has even worked them into branding and social media content. Some people believe this is his way of signaling to certain industry insiders that he's in, that he passed whatever initiation they're talking about. It sounds wild, I know. But when people step back and look at everything together, they argue that these strange little details start lining up in uncomfortable ways. Now let's talk about what critics say looks like quiet damage control. Right as the allegations surrounding Diddy started heating up, Snoop Dogg was suddenly announced as a U.S. honorary coach for the Winter Olympics. Convenient timing, right? Almost overnight, he was back in the spotlight, but this time with overwhelmingly positive coverage. Headlines focused on how funny, lovable, and wholesome he is. To some observers, it looked like the perfect distraction from the allegations floating around his name. Then he started appearing everywhere: commercials, major brand deals, family-friendly TV shows, NFL broadcasts. T-Mobile, The Voice, sports promos, you couldn't turn on a screen without seeing him. It felt like he suddenly became the face of safe, mainstream entertainment. Critics argue that this kind of media blitz is classic PR cleanup, flood the public with positive imagery before any serious fallout hits. And finally, this brings us back to Gene Deal, one of Diddy's former bodyguards. He recently did an interview explaining why he wasn't involved in 50 Cent's documentary at all.
And I mean, I had to bring you back. This documentary got everyone talking, man. A lot of people want to know why you wasn't in it, man.
Well, first and foremost, I thought I was going to be in the documentary at first until I started talking to that director. I think her name is Stapleton. I don't know her name. I don't know, man. Me and 50 talked like 45 minutes. The producers had been calling me and everything. So this one night, 50 called me up and, they got him on the phone. Me and him was just talking. We was talking about old time shit, sit down with Black Hands, sit down with, with Puff Kids, the whole Puff situation, and this documentary that he's going to be doing. You know what I'm saying? So I told him that I was going to, have Kirk and Tim. Kirk would be the one who talk about the business part of it. Tim would be the one who talk about the growing up phase with Diddy and everything and over there working in the record industry with him and stuff like that. They was like family. And I was gonna talk about, the street stuff, what was going on with Bad Boy, with the security, with Wolf, with the city college, with the time that I knew about when I was with him up until about early 2004 or something like that. But basically the streets and then the traveling with him and the atmosphere and everything. And then go back into the Notorious Big stuff with the Tupac and the whole 9 years, all the stuff that I knew.
And guys, here's the part that really surprised people. According to Gene Deal, the documentary team tried to lowball him with a very small payout. But he says money wasn't even the main issue. The bigger problem, in his view, is that the documentary left out major pieces of information, details he believes would have made the story far more explosive. And according to Gene, Snoop Dogg's name kept coming up repeatedly whenever discussions turned to who was truly involved behind the scenes. Gene Deal specifically brought up the City College tragedy, where 9 people lost their lives at a Diddy event back in 1991. He He claims the real story behind that night involves more individuals than what was shown in the documentary. He suggests that Snoop Dogg was aware of certain things but chose to stay silent. Gene also claims that federal investigators have been quietly gathering evidence for years, sealed testimonies, witness statements, and other material, and that more indictments could still be coming. Now think about this. Gene Deal spent years working closely with Diddy, and by his own admission, he has no love for Suge Knight. Yet despite that, he still confirms parts of Suge's claims when it comes to Snoop Dogg. And when two people who openly dislike each other end up agreeing on the same thing about a third person, that's when people say it's worth paying attention. According to industry insiders, there are coded phrases that get used when talking about all of this. Terms like sat in the director's chair or sat on the director's lap. These are described as metaphors for compromising situations that allegedly led to sudden, overnight success. Multiple people who say they were around at the time claim that Snoop Dogg's career skyrocketed immediately after those alleged encounters. That he went from being just another up-and-coming rapper to suddenly being everywhere, landing major deals, gaining powerful protection, and becoming untouchable in the industry. And let's be real, according to critics, that level of protection doesn't come for free. You don't become that insulated unless you're connected to something much bigger. That's the part people can't stop questioning.
I've been confronted by so many law enforcement for the CDs. Even my studio equipment was confiscated.
Now, peeps, we have an exclusive on the Lionel B Show today. A Diddy insider sat down with me to talk about the Diddy celebrity tapes he has possession of, and also exclusive details surrounding Diddy and Gene Deal's involvement.
And that's exactly what all these different sources keep pointing toward. They're saying Snoop Dogg wasn't just someone who got caught up in the system, he allegedly became part of the system itself. Part of the same machine that's accused of doing this to other people. So let's pull everything together. Why did Snoop Dogg really vanish the moment 50 Cent's documentary dropped? Here's what's being reported and discussed. Federal investigators reportedly seized video evidence from Diddy's homes. A lawyer publicly confirmed that tapes allegedly exist involving other high-profile celebrities. Multiple separate online sources claim Snoop Dogg appears on those recordings. Kim Porter is said to have documented Snoop's connection to Diddy before her sudden passing. People who say they were actually around the industry back then are finally speaking up. And Snoop's response to all of this? Total silence. Now let me ask you something. If someone accused you of being involved in trafficking, freak-offs, or questionable situations with Diddy, and you were completely innocent, wouldn't you respond immediately? Wouldn't you defend yourself? Put out a statement? File a lawsuit? Clear your name? But Snoop Dogg hasn't done any of that. He didn't push back. He didn't address it. He didn't deny it. He just disappeared. And honestly, that silence is louder than any denial he could have given. Think about Snoop's public image. He's usually the first one to jump into drama. Always online. Always cracking jokes. Always reacting to whatever's happening in hip-hop. He gives his take on everything. But the moment one of his closest industry associates becomes tied to some of the darkest allegations the culture has ever seen, Snoop goes completely quiet. That doesn't look like loyalty to a friend. That looks like self-preservation. And here's the part that should really make people pay attention. Multiple sources are saying this is only the beginning. More names are expected to surface. The feds are reportedly building cases involving several celebrities. And Snoop Dogg's name is said to keep appearing in sealed testimony the public hasn't seen yet. A lot of people believe 50 Cent knows more than he's letting on. That's why he made the documentary. That's why he's been posting cryptic messages about Diddy for years. And that might be exactly why Snoop Dogg vanished, because he knows 50 has receipts. Look, I know this is a lot. Putting this entire breakdown together wasn't easy. But these conversations matter. We can't keep shielding celebrities just because they made music we love or because we grew up watching them on TV. If these allegations end up being true, and many believe the evidence is pointing that way, then fans may have been misled for decades. People say Snoop Dogg presented himself as Tupac's loyal ride or die, while allegedly betraying him behind the scenes. Acting like a harmless, lovable figure while, according to critics, being tied to things far darker than anyone ever imagined. So here's what I want to hear from you. Do you think Snoop Dogg gets named if new indictments drop? And if all of this ends up being confirmed, what should fans do after supporting him for so many years? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I genuinely want to know where you stand. If you stayed with me all the way to the end, thank you. I know this was heavy, but these stories matter. Victims deserve to be heard, and we need to stop giving passes to powerful people just because they're famous. Make sure you subscribe to the Celeb Pulse channel and turn on notifications, because this situation isn't slowing down. New information is coming out almost every day. More witnesses are speaking up, more evidence is surfacing, and the federal investigation is still active. This could end up being one of the biggest scandals hip-hop has ever seen, and we're watching it unfold in real time. I'll catch you in the next video. Stay safe out there, guys.